Everybody, thank you for making it out of your hotel rooms after yesterday. There is something that I wanted to show you, although some of you have already been in Casa Gallery for the Hyperstrata. The gallery will in a way inherit some of the possible collaborations that have been developed during SER 2011 in Istanbul, and will work closely with Leonardo Electronic Almanac for publications of catalogs. As you know, one of the things that we do with Christiane and Paul, Vince Ziekan, is to present artists on online systems, particularly social networks, going from Facebook to Twitter. It has been a very interesting endeavor, so I'm not going to be explaining very much about that, but what I would like to say is that these shows, that generally speaking happen online, then they will become physical exhibitions within Casa Gallery. And from there, it is my hope that they will be able to travel across different galleries, university galleries, and etc. In the world. So if you are a curator, if you have a gallery or contacts and etc., please do feel free to get in touch. The other thing that I wanted to say is that we opened the gallery with Manifestar, and in particular with a collaboration with Sanders Venhoff and Tamiko Thiel. And this most likely will become a set feature of the gallery. So the gallery will keep an augmented reality program. Our program will end up in December for now, but it is my belief that it would be great to keep the artworks there for throughout the years while the exhibitions are going on. And for a city like Istanbul, it could be very interesting to keep invading some of the more traditional spaces. I would like to remind you that there is the Maxim Gallery, which is the octagonal space in front of the main gallery where there is the Uncontainable exhibition. There is in that small space, a small octagonal space, an artwork by Jane Grant. It's called Ghosts. It collects all the sounds from the surrounding square and brings them into this 17th century building. Now, this is a very beautiful building, and it's another first probably for us. And here in Istanbul, it was never used before to host an artwork. Although for some of your practices it may seem very easy to get artworks in historical buildings. In Italy, it has been done since the early 1960s. You have to understand that here it's particularly complicated, both from an aesthetic point of view as well as a bureaucratic point of view. So I'm very happy to say that some of you have already visited and they loved the space and the artwork. Having finished with all this sort of general announcements, I see is now starting to come to a close. Tomorrow morning there will be the trip to the university, which is due. As you know, I had to make a choice if to keep you 1 hour away from the city or to keep you within the city. My choice was to keep you within the city because most of you went sightseeing and enjoyed the beautiful city of Istanbul. And I also suspected that if I brought you to a post neo-industrialist area, neo-industrial area, probably most of you would have rioted. So tomorrow, it's probably we could call it the day in which we visit a different area of Istanbul. The journey is going to be very interesting for everybody. We will have buses, an announcement will be sent, and we will collect you in Taksim, and then we will go to the university. And then there will be buses that will take you back to Kadıköy, from where you can either go to dinner. There is a beautiful area there with all different sorts of restaurants, or you can just take the boat, see the lights of Istanbul for one last time, and get back to your hotels. Now, having said all of this, I would like to say a few words to introduce Christiane Paul. She has been a great asset and a great supporter for all the curatorial activities that the Leonardo Electronic Almanac has started. Particularly in a moment which was extremely difficult. It was a moment of transition. So I'm very and extremely grateful to her for having believed in the work that we were doing and for having supported us in all different sorts of ways, as well as for having encouraged us. She is extremely well known in the world of new media for her curatorial practice, and without further much of an introduction, I would like to present you Christiane.
Good morning, and thank you very much for coming. I know everybody is tired right now, and thanks so much for the generous introduction, Lanfranco. I wish I could have offered more support, and I promise to do so in the future, because time is always of the essence, as you know. So my talk today will focus on the transition from networked art 1.0 to 2.0, the upgrade path. And obviously, for the past 5 decades, digital technologies have produced profound changes for the function of art and the creation and dissemination of artistic productions in general. From the early 90s throughout the 2000s in particular, networked art has undergone a process of versioning. It has moved from its so-called 1.0 to 2.0 release. While the corporate metaphor of Web 2.0 entails a fair amount of hype, marketing, and monetizing, it can also provide a very interesting framework for outlining the ways in which networked art has initiated and responded to changes in concepts such as data spaces, identity, and collective production. And these concepts have found different forms of expression in the 1.0 versus 2.0 version of networked environments. Networks, particularly social ones, have evolved and profoundly shaped contemporary art and culture over the past 20 years in particular. So I would argue that artistic practice has both helped to initiate and responded to the move from 1.0 to 2.0 and their respective articulation of data spaces, identity, and collective production, which are the areas I will focus on in my talk. And a track-log of these different ways in which it has expressed these concepts can be a portal to the critical analysis of network culture's evolution. Virtual and physical data spaces meet in the concept of Web 2.0 and social media content that has been created by scalable publishing technologies that rely as much on internet-based tools as mobile devices to access and distribute this content. And of course, I'm talking about blogs, wikis, social networking sites such as Facebook, MySpace, YouTube, Flickr, and microblogging sites such as Twitter. And they have been hyped as the supposed second generation of web-based services. I want to briefly quote Tim O'Reilly, since the term Web 2.0 has been ultimately coined by O'Reilly Media in 2004. And as O'Reilly put it, Web 2.0 is the business revolution in the computer industry caused by the move to the internet as platform and an attempt to understand the rules for success on that new platform. Chief among those rules is this: build applications that harness network effects to get better the more people use them. And I want to take a closer look at that statement and what it means. This is a meme map of Web 2.0 that was developed at a brainstorming session at O'Reilly. And you see some of the key memes, or probably hype, here on the screen. I would absolutely agree with the perpetual beta in which most projects are. There is, under blogs, move to participation, not publishing, which I find fairly dubious. The radical trust of Wikipedia, which is also questionable. And I want to, in the following, to take a closer look at many of these terminologies here. So first of all, while the marketing readiness of the term Web 2.0 is kind of nice and comes in handy, there's also something profoundly wrong with that metaphor, because 2.0 in software, for example, always means that we're replacing 1.0. You quickly lose access to 1.0. That has not been true for the web, obviously. Version 1.1 and 1.2 and 1.3 very often are still around in parallel. So the metaphor itself is not the most appropriate one. And I would also argue that the internet always has been a platform that supported network effects, as opposed to what O'Reilly is arguing here. And you might even say that participation to some extent may have been stronger in the 1.0 version, at least when it comes to a specific focus one might take. We have seen upgrades from the bulletin board system and Usenet groups to mailing lists, from multi-user domains, the MUDs and MOOs, to graphic chat rooms and virtual worlds, and from the single channel publication via website to the more feedback-friendly blog. And again, I will address these in a little bit more detail in the following. Rather than providing really reconfigurable platform for networking and generating network effects, Web 2.0 sites largely provide hyperlink broadcasting environments. On the upside, you have ready-for-use distribution platforms for the average user that incorporate the ability to filter and link information. And what is problematic, of course, is that users give up ownership of the content they produce, and that personal information is subjected to data mining. If you look at the YouTube terms of service, you're reading by submitting content to YouTube, you hereby grant YouTube a worldwide, non-exclusive, royalty-free, sub-licensable, and transferable license to use, reproduce, distribute, prepare derivative works of, display, and perform the content in connection with the service and YouTube's business. And I'm not saying that this is so unusual. If you take a look at the Whitney Museum's commissioning agreement for NetArt, for example, you find a lot of the same terminology, a big difference being that we actually pay for commissioning the work. You know, artists sign that agreement, and while they retain copyright and the Whitney has a non-exclusive license, artists also get paid for their service. And that obviously is not true when it comes to YouTube. I'm taking this chart again directly from O'Reilly's website. That's their version of Web 1.0 versus Web 2.0. What you see juxtaposed here is the double-click versus Google AdSense, early photo sites such as oPhoto versus Flickr, then the Akamai NetSession interface, which increased